So, welcome everyone to today's webinar about decision making in strategy execution. Today I want to talk about how to use AI to build speed and confidence in strategic decisions. Before we start with the actual webinar, we will wait, as usual, 2 to 3 more minutes to ensure everyone can join. And while you're waiting, please share with me on a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you in using AI in your daily work? Always interesting to hear how familiar people are with working with AI. And I really asked the question about how familiar are with using AI in general and not for strategy execution only, because I believe people who are familiar with using AI should also be able to use it properly in their strategy execution. All right, 1 more minute until we get started. I can see now in the chat that the group is relatively mixed. We have people feeling familiar between 3 and 7 out of 10 in their capabilities around AI. So I'm pretty confident that you will at least learn a little bit today. And the topic, as I said already, is how to use AI to build speed and confidence in strategic decision making. So we will not only dive into the topic of AI, we will also briefly touch base the topic of decision making in general and how and where to make decisions in your strategy execution process. All right, then let's get started. Once again, welcome everyone to today's webinar about decision making in strategy execution. We will focus on how to use AI to build speed and confidence in your strategic decisions. And first of all, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Alex. I'm leading the customer success team of WorkPath. And the topic I'm actually most familiar with is strategy execution. I helped around, or probably almost over 100 organizations already in their strategy execution. A fun fact you probably wondering is I don't like OKRs, but I love AI. Actually, the reason for that is quite simple. AI simplifies things, and OKRs implemented in the wrong way rather creates complexity. Don't get me wrong, the principles of OKRs, like creating measurability, alignment, working short planning and execution cycle, they are very powerful, and I really appreciate them. But OKRs in general, the framework, can also create some complexity. But let's now jump on the topic, and I will start today's webinar with the question, why is it so hard to turn strategies into outcomes? The reason is actually quite simple. It's because at the end, we are way too slow in taking decisions. And the reason for that is that currently uncertainty is continuously increasing. We have more and more macroeconomic tensions, like trade war, or a trade war started by Donald Trump's idea of implementing tariffs. There's the Ukraine war. We had COVID a few years ago. And for sure, we also have technological developments like artificial intelligence that changing the way how people work in their organizations or how we behave in our daily work or in daily life. And as you can see on the right-hand side on the chart, uncertainty reached an all-time high beginning of 2025. Yeah, and this was actually before the announcements of Trump's tariffs. Probably it's now even higher. And the graph shows the Global Economic Policy Uncertainty Index that measures the uncertainty created in nowadays world by macroeconomic tensions, or as I said, also technological development. So there are several factors influencing that index. In addition to increasing uncertainty, complexity scales faster than alignment. That means at the end that the problems we are trying to solve in organizations, in our work, becomes harder and harder. And for example, we are not able to align with all stakeholders involved to deal with this increasing complexity in the same pace. And that at the end leads to the fact that by the time we have understood something and collected all information, the window of opportunity or the window to act has actually closed. Or again, we are way too slow in taking decisions. But why is it critical in strategy execution to increase speed and certainty in decision making? At the end, it's because strategy execution is about taking decisions under uncertainty. Because when we take a decision in strategy execution, we make assumptions about the future, and based on our assumptions, we take a decision. So strategy and strategy execution is always connected to limited information. We never be 100% certain of a decision we take. And when we are waiting for the right time to make a decision by collecting the required information or aligning ourselves with several stakeholders, colleagues, and so on and so forth, the window of opportunity is gone. And this is why I would actually state that speed always beats certainty in strategic decision making. But let's have a deeper look into how we usually take decisions. When we are taking decisions, then we usually consider 3 elements. And this not only counts for decisions in strategic decision making or in decisions in the context of strategy execution, but also for personal decision making. First, we have to consider our own priorities. So what is important for us? What matters for us? Second, we have to consider all available information. We should search for the information that is relevant and then that affects the outcome of our decision. And third, we usually establish hypotheses or assumptions that we make based on what we know or what we learned in the course of our lives. And usually we consider these 3 elements when we come to a decision. Usually for important decisions like big investments, for example, we are buying a house or flat. We're usually very conscious about these 3 elements. We know our priorities there. How big our flat should be, how much we want to pay, if we want a cheaper or a more expensive one, and so on and so forth. For not important decisions like how to come to the office or what we want to eat for lunch, we take the decisions rather unconsciously. And that makes actually clear that we always should consider the consequences of the decision, the actual outcome, because this should be in relation to the time invested for collecting the available information. For example, searching 5 minutes for the best route to the office or how we get there, that is then only 2 minutes faster than the other one or the other way. It's actually not worth to spend these 5 minutes. If we're buying a flat where we live the entire life, then, or if we're deciding for a partner in our lives, for sure we should be more conscious about that. And this is why I usually also recommend when you take strategic decisions or decisions in strategy execution that you, for collecting the available information, you apply the Pareto principle. Means that you take 20% of your time to reach 80% of the result. So you probably collect 80% of information in 20% of your time. And if you really want to get 100%, then it's took way too long, and then you not create the required speed in taking decisions. So really be conscious about the time you spend here, because as I said, speed matters most for taking strategic decisions. What is also important, we usually make unconscious or unimportant decisions automatically based on everything we have learned throughout our lives. And for important decisions, however, we tend to reflect on our past experience and consciously take them into account when forming our hypothesis or making our assumptions. Means that you then sometimes reflect, okay, have I taken such a decision already? What have I learned during that time? Maybe during my last planning and execution cycle, we had a similar situation, or during my last job, I was in a similar situation, and you really are conscious about, okay, I had a similar assumption made already, or I set up a similar hypothesis. And for unconscious or unimportant decisions, that happens automatically. So let's quickly recap. For making a good decision, we consider our priorities, we collect available information, we set up hypotheses about a potential outcome. For important decisions with consequences for our lives or for our job or for our organization, we spend more time. For unimportant ones, we spend less time, and we rather make them unconsciously. But let's now also have a look on where we actually take decisions during strategy execution. And when taking decisions in strategy execution, we can actually consider the concept of a decision-making loop. A decision-making loop consists of 3 phases: the decision-making process, the execution, and the evaluation. First, at the beginning of that loop, we make a decision, usually during the planning phase. For example, when we're deciding about priorities or measures we want to execute, about how resources in our organizations are allocated, or about how we collaborate across these priorities or measures. Then second, during execution, we have, again, several small decision-making loops, actually similar to an agile team working in sprints of 2 weeks. They always decide again, execute again, reflect again. So it means actually within our decision-making loop in strategy execution, we have several smaller decision-making loops. It's always about implementing something, evaluating if it has paid off or not. And if it has paid off, everything is fine. And you can continue with the next task or topic of the backlog. If it hasn't paid off, you iterate on your measures. It means you decide again what could be other new potential measures to be implemented. Or you could also decide about how to solve a certain blocker in that blocks you from executing or achieving something, or you decide about how to mitigate a certain risk that come up in your execution. Again, several decisions and several decision-making loops. And then third, at the end of the loop, you evaluate the outcome and the quality of the decision. Typically, we use the retro for evaluating the quality and the review for evaluating the outcome. And when we're bringing that in the context of strategy execution, maybe in the context of OKR, a review could be that you assess if the priorities that you have decided within your organization or within your team have moved the needle on the KPIs that are important to you. And also here, you can see that you do that not just once, but again and again. A review probably every 3 months. If you do it within a sprint, then every 2 weeks. From what I know is actually evaluating the outcome of the decision, in a review is quite common, but evaluating the quality of a decision in a retro isn't that common. Quite often people think like, oh, okay, I don't have that much time for my planning and execution cycle, so let's skip the retro. It's not about the outcomes, it's just about how we work, so this is not important. But to be really honest, especially when you start transforming your planning and execution cycles or your approach for strategy execution, this is super important, because then you really better understand where you made some pitfalls in your decision-making process and you can improve going forward. But I want to check that with you as well, and also check with you, do you really actively evaluate the quality of your decisions at the end of a decision-making loop, or are you rather a person focusing on reflecting about the outcomes achieved? You can use the QR code in the right corner. Then you get directed to a small survey tool, and there you can answer the question, or you can also click on the link Lena shared in the chat and then also answer the question there. And for sure, we want to also see the result of that poll, because this is also interesting for us when we later also discuss how you can actually evaluate a decision in a proper way. Okay, there's a pretty fairly equally allocation now we rather have people rarely evaluating their decisions, sometimes or rarely. So most of the times never is not happening. This is also good, but it's also nothing that is done all the time. Yeah, probably connected to the fact, in case you have sufficient time, you do it. In case there's no time, then you usually skip this. So pretty fairly allocated. Some do it most of the time, some do it sometimes, some do it rarely. No one does it never. Okay, but this is actually what I have expected. Let's now go back and figure out how you can evaluate a decision in a proper way. Before we dive onto the topic, imagine the following situation. You play the lottery and you win 5 million euro. You know what is now coming? Yeah, was this a good decision or not? What do you think? I'm not waiting for your response. I guess most of you know that example already. The quality of the decision was shit, for sure, because the probability of winning the lottery is far too low that you will reach the expected outcome of winning the $5 million or euro. But for sure, the outcome of the decision was great. And this is something we should always keep in mind when evaluating decisions. Yeah. Evaluating decisions should happen ex ante, what means you evaluate them at the point of time when you take the decision. Evaluating the outcome of a decision should happen ex post, means after you know and after you are certain about the outcome. Playing the lottery is still a stupid decision because the probability of winning is almost zero, and the time you took and at the time when you playing lottery, you have no certainty of winning, so you should not do that. But I now also want to better understand how you, when you evaluate decision making or when you evaluate your planning and execution cycle, I want to better understand how you actually evaluate the quality of your decisions. Yeah. What are you doing? And also here we have a small question for you, because I also want to learn from you. What are the approaches that are applied here? Do you asking questions? Do you checking, okay, the hypothesis or assumptions you made? What could be that you check the OKRs and to which other priorities or KPIs they are aligned, because every alignment actually describes a certain hypothesis that you set up. Or yeah, what is or how do you actually evaluate the quality? Also here we have a small survey and want to better understand what are you doing, because at least from the survey I learned everyone has at least once evaluated the quality of the decisions. Okay, we have a question in the chat. I will answer that question while you can still respond to the question. And the question is, what is the difference between the quality of a decision and the outcome of a decision? So the outcome of the decision is clear. So The outcome is actually after you have taken decision, for example, you have decided about a certain implementing or driving a certain priority or implementing a certain measure. After you have implemented that the desired outcome has been achieved. For example, you launch a new product and this product achieves or this product creates the aspired revenue. This could be an outcome of a decision. Yeah. For example, let's also use the lottery example again. Winning the lottery is the outcome, and getting the 5 million euro is the outcome of your decision. Evaluating the quality of a decision means like, was it smart playing the lottery back in the days when you filled out your lottery paper? Yeah. Was that a smart move or not? How can you evaluate that? You could keep into account what is the probability of winning a lottery. And if you consider the probability of winning a lottery, then you actually realize quite early or quite soon that playing the lottery is not a smart decision. So means, and this is what I have shown with the one slide. Sorry, ex ante, you're evaluating the quality of a decision at the point in time when you have taken it, and ex post, you evaluate the outcome of a decision when you are sure what has happened, what was the outcome of it. Okay, let's now also have one look at the answers. A lot of people look at the metrics afterwards. Metrics is mentioned several times. Here I'm wondering what kind of metrics, because from my perspective, if the metrics has moved or not, they are quite often rather describe the outcome of a decision, but not the quality. Taking feedback from the affected parties, probably always helpful. Yeah, talking to people, understanding, okay, have we made the right assumptions? What has happened? Has it worked out what we have decided? How we want to collaborate, and so on and so forth. How we allocate our resources. This could definitely help. Retrospective is mentioned for sure. And some people also ask, would I take the decision after 1 week again? Yeah, this is actually something I really like, that if you reflect again with the information you had during that point in time, would you take the same decision again? When you can answer this question with a yes, I would take the decision again and again. Also, when I know the outcome, but with the information I have in mind, then you should take it again. If you would take a different decision, it was probably a bad one. Okay, let's now move back and also let me briefly explain how I would evaluate decisions in strategy execution. So when we evaluate decisions, it's super fair that we start with evaluating the outcome. Yeah, means analyzing if we have achieved our targets. And quite often, there are 3 elements that we can evaluate. First, have we completed the measures, the to-dos, the actions we have planned at the beginning of a cycle, or we have decided at the beginning of the cycle. Then in the second step, we can assess, have we achieved our OKRs that we have decided or planned at the beginning of the cycle? OKRs is just one way. For sure, you can also replace OKRs with priorities and keep it more generic. And then third, we evaluate, have we moved the needle on our KPIs? And why we are doing that in this sequence is because some of you probably know the concept of the impact chain. I want to briefly explain that. On the right-hand side of the impact chain is business impact. This is at the end what we want to achieve when executing strategies. Yeah, top line growth, bottom line growth. most organizations, or almost every organization, want to grow or become more profitable. But the problem of these often financial metrics is that we are not able to steer, because these metrics rather assess the developments of the past, and how well we have performed over the last 3 months is not an information we can use for steering. This is why we have implemented outcomes, the second layer here in yellow. Measurable customer values. These help us to predict earlier if we are on the right track, and the connection between the outcomes or customer value and the impact is at the end then again a hypothesis we have. When we create a certain customer value, then we deliver a certain business impact, and then we become more profitable or we are growing. And the same applies for outputs and outcomes. We believe when we are working on something, delivering a milestone, implementing a measure, delivering a story point, then this creates a certain customer value, and this customer value once again creates the business impact. But as you can see, we have to check all of these elements in order to decide if the hypothesis we have set up has been right. And this is actually then the second thing we analyze. Have our hypothesis been right, or have there been other factors why our KPIs or our OKRs have not progressed as planned or progressed as planned? For example, during COVID, a lot of e-commerce players have performed quite well. But during that time, people have not been able to visit stores. So you're probably not 100% sure, is this just because of the strategies they have implemented and what they have planned? Or is it just also because of other external factors that have influenced their metrics? But it's also keeping in mind, you not only test hypotheses, you also check once, have there been other external factors that might have influenced our goal achievement? Third, you should analyze if you considered all available information. Or maybe you missed something. Important here is again that you consider the information at a point in time when you took the decision, ex ante and not ex post. After you have achieved a certain outcome, or there was reached a certain outcome, it's super easy to say like that. It was clear that this happened, but usually it's not that clear, because if everything is that clear, then probably we all have been millionaires, because you could bet on the stock market, you could bet on a match in sports, and you become super rich, but actually it's not that easy. Usually we just have a certain amount of information and take the decision under uncertainty. Fourth, we analyze the decisions we have made, for example, on the priorities, on the measures, on the KPIs. Probably most times on priorities and measures, resource allocation, collaborations. Some probably have been better than others. You can also compare that. And fifth, and this is also very important, conclude learnings in order to improve the decision making going forward. Why have you not been able to find a certain information, for example? Was it because you not spent sufficient time on research? Was it because you just missed some sources? So there are several reasons for that. Or why have you come up with certain hypothesis or assumption? Maybe you have some biases, for example, or you're biased because of the experiences you made of the in your past life. So maybe sometimes it's better then to consider more opinions and not only your own if you're biased. But these are the things that you should conclude in the learnings in order to avoid them going forward. And what is also important, it's important to understand that the things that didn't work out have a value in themselves. Because if you realize something you tried has not worked out, you can avoid to do it again. And once again, I said at the beginning, speed beats certainty. Because after you tried something that has not worked out, you can try something new once again. All right, then let's now move into the topic of AI for better decision making. And first, I want to learn from you once again. How do you currently already use AI for better decision making? Once again, you can scan the code. I will also quickly go to the Slido again to see what answers we have. And maybe this question is really focused on how you use AI for better decision making. But as you have learned today already, that it's not only about decision making. A lot of things we do in our planning and execution cycle is actually about decision making. Yeah, which priorities we choose, which methods we choose, how we allocate resources. But sometimes we are not conscious that these are actual decisions, but they are. So you can also answer the question in a way like, how do we use AI in strategy execution? Collecting information. Most obvious, probably. Good one. Get input for what measures to choose. Some haven't used AI in decision making. Collecting information, we get a second time. So I could imagine this is the most common use case. Ask ChatGPT to challenge you and your decision. Also pretty good, yeah. Also, one prompt I will show you later as well is describe your decision and say like, look, have I missed anything? Yeah, this is also pretty good to get then feedback. Maybe AI sees something that you don't have in mind. Using AI agents, also one, and brainstorming on ideas for sure. Summarizing things, drafting things, I see, discuss ideas with AI. So a lot of around getting input, collecting information, brainstorming things. I guess these are the most common use cases. Let us now have a look again on our decision-making loop. The decision-making loop starts, as I said, with the decision phase or the planning phase. And as mentioned already, we decide our priorities, measures, resource allocation, collaboration during that phase. And I now just wrote down a few prompts that you can use during that phase. And then we will dive a little bit deeper in how to create a powerful prompt for these phases. So potential prompts in this phase could be operationalizing your strategy in strategic priorities or goals. That you say like, look, if AI understands my strategy, I can derive priorities or goals with the help of AI. This is actually, I guess, what some already doing. Then second option is finding metrics to measure your success. Yeah, AI understands or actually knows all metrics that have been used across the world to measure something. So probably it also knows something that helps you. It's then rather a question if that metric is available for you or not. Formulating outcome-oriented goals. Guess this was always part of the survey, how you draft your goals. Then fourth, operationalizing goals by deriving initiatives. So creating really an action plan, what you should do in order to achieve your goals. So if you have no idea how to get started with something, this is super helpful to ask AI, hey, I have the following task. How would you approach this? Identifying synergies or suggesting collaborations is a great use case, yeah, because we also decide about collaboration. So why not letting AI help us to identify first where to collaborate and then discuss this with the colleagues? And then also one example could be identifying and managing critical resources. Yeah, if AI understands how you spend your resources, it can state, okay, I will allocate them in the following in order to maximize the created value or address most of the most important goals. As I said, these are just a few examples. I will now rather spend more time on how this could actually look like in more detail and how to really create a powerful prompt for that. So let's have a look at one prompt for the first prompt idea, operationalizing strategy in strategic priorities or goals. So how to formulate a powerful prompt. When I describe how AI works and what is our goal with prompt engineering, I usually use the example of comparing AI with a navigation device that is aware of all streets, of all routes across the world. And the biggest problem is often to find or to provide the right destination. And what we're doing with prompt engineering is actually we providing a destination because the information is there. We just have to figure it out or we have to ensure that the AI provides this information. And this is why it's important to provide context. And one possibility of providing context is giving AI a role. Yeah, in this example, our AI assistant is a strategy execution consultant helping teams to derive goals for the next quarter. Then we add additional context. Yeah, we first add some context on the priorities of the organization. Yeah, high-level priorities that also the AI understands better. Okay, what is my organization trying to achieve, and how can then my team contribute there? But you can make it more clear in when you describe also the outcomes. Yeah, do we not only when we want to become more profitable? Yeah, is it because we increase our margin, our gross margin, or is it because we decrease our operating costs for something or our materials? So what is it actually? Then you should also describe the purpose or the role of your team to also get the context. What does your team in context of the entire organization? And if you're aware which outcomes can you actually influence? And last, what are the responsibilities of the team? What skills you have in your team? And also what resources are available? Because then understanding the skills and resources also gives an indication about potential tasks or ideas. And then it's important to also consider external information. Yeah, the research in collecting information from outside, their AI is super powerful. So also we can do some research if there are external factors out there that might influence achievement of the strategic priorities. And last but not least, also important for all prompts you engineer, what is the output? What is the format you want the results? In this example, I said like, please provide the output in the following form. Provide a goal that states deliver value to customer by implementing a certain initiative and measure it with a certain metric. And I also want to know, provide me with the information towards which of the top level priorities the goals are contributing to. So if we're doing that, we can see, okay, we have a lot of context, we use external research, and we define the output. I guess these are context and output are at least the most important things. Research is optional, that you also consider external information, but the more, as I said, the more context you provide, the better it gets. Let's now also try that out briefly. I just have one example with me. The context on the priorities of the organization are the following. 3 priorities. One is about developing new digital business models, creating additional revenue. One is about sustainability and ESG leadership. One is about becoming an employer brand. And the context for the team is responsible for business intelligence and analytics. Within the IT units, have 3 data analysts and 1 researcher. When I now take that information and copy that to ChatGPT, and I have now just opened ChatGPT, copy that information in, you can see we are the consultant, we provide some context, just shared on the slide. We want to do some research, we also add the right output form. If you have more time, we're not doing that now in the webinar, but also you can use a deep research function of ChatGPT. Then it takes some more time, considers way more information, really crawls the web for these information, but it takes then also longer, so I will not do that now. And then you can just search for it, and now with the context you provided, the LLM will provide you some information. And as you can see already, that the form it provides my goals is exactly the form I have requested. Yeah. It says my team should deliver data-driven insights to the product development team. by implementing a predictive analytics dashboard that identifies 3 customer segments with high digital adoption potential. Why? Because we want to develop a new digital business model. We measure that by a 15% increase in conversion rate within these segments, and it contributes, as we already see here, to that top level priority. Same. In addition, we get some information which external factor could affect our goal achievement. For example, EU's Digital Market Act. Some of you know that it's a guideline or some law for, or some regulation for big digital companies, hyperscalers, quite often Facebook, YouTube, and so on, that it protects some of our information. And for sure, if you want to create a digital business model, this might affect you. I will not dive deeper into the other parts, but as you can see, already with some small context, you get pretty good results on actually what happens. It's just important that you provide context and that you define the form you want the output have. Let's now quickly go back to the presentation and also have a look at the second phase of the decision-making loop. Execution. As mentioned, during this phase, you decide about iterating measures, solving blockers, mitigating risks, and potential prompts during this execution phase could be that you validate how an external event might influence your goal achievement, or that you brainstorm ideas how to mitigate a certain risk. Or another option is that you consult or you use AI for consulting if an adjustment of strategic priority is actually required. You could also brainstorm ideas how to solve a blocker. Or what I also really like is just asking the AI how you can make use of AI in a proper way for your problem. When you face a problem, when you face a blocker, when you have a risk, just ask AI, hey, how would you approach that? One example again here on the right-hand side is you want to understand how an external event like the new tariffs of Donald Trump in the US will influence your goal achievement. Once again, you provide some context. What is the business and the organization about? What is the purpose of your team? What are the goals of your team? And then you also once again define the form that you say like, okay, let me know which goals are affected from that event. What is the probability that this affects my goal? What is the expected deviation on the metrics? Or what can be done to mitigate the risk? And the more clear you're also with the output, the better the results are. If someone of you have an organization in mind, maybe your own organization, but also could be a random, feel free to post in the chat your organization, maybe quick industry, purpose of your team, and some goals. And then we can also check that, this example with your input. Nevertheless, I already prepared as well for the example we used already, a prompt that I now just copy in. You can see, imagine you are a strategy execution consultant helping teams to execute their goals. Please evaluate how the event, new tariffs in the US, will influence goal achievement, and so on and so forth. And when I'm now searching for that, then it does a great analysis. First, it analyzes, okay, which of the goals that have been drafted are actually affected. Then in the second step, it tries to determine what is the probability of affecting these goals. It's here 40%, 10%, 25%. So it's actually not that high. It also tries to rate the expected deviations in the metrics. Is there a deviation? Not. And also what you can really do to address the risks in with that comes with the external event. Now, here in this example, we not really have provided a lot of context. If we do the same now with an organization with way more context, And I just also, because I cannot see anything in the chat, I just also prepared something here. Yeah, it was also just created by ChatGPT. But imagine there is an organization, Noventis Industrial Solutions, in the industrial technology, sustainability sector, where you also have more information about the markets, its customers, the business purpose. You have way more information about the team, and you really have more information or more detailed out or goals that are more detailed out. And I now use that information and copy it to ChatGPT. Then the results are even better, because AI always needs a lot of context to better understand your situation, and then in order to consider what you actually want. And then I'll put everything in, and I just write a prompt, do the same for this organization. And then let's see what happens. We once again get an in-depth analysis about how this topic affects our organization. We provided way more information, and here you can see you get a way more detailed analysis because you have way more context. In this example, position Noventis as a leader in sustainable industrial solution. It is affected, so just 60% here. Yes, it is affected 75%, maybe partially affected, as you can see. The answer's getting better and better. For sure, this was just one or another example how you can use AI and how you can use prompt engineering for your strategy execution. But it makes it clear that context is key for using AI. And actually, this is also why we usually recommend our customers that they bring more data on the platform, that they bring their KPIs on the platform, that they bring all their projects on the platform, that they describe the purpose of the team on the platform, because the more context AI has, the better are the results. And we want to implement more and more AI features that then help you to optimize your work. Nevertheless, and this is also important, prompt engineering is just a first step in using AI. Even better would be to build really automations with an AI agent. Yeah. What is an AI agent? An AI agent actually is a virtual colleague that takes over a task for you. And I just built one agent here on the right-hand side that exactly does the same what I did now with prompt engineering in ChatGPT. Yeah. You have a certain trigger that is predefined. For example, there is a new use in the newspaper. Trump's tariff is just one example. Then you have a certain prompt that is predefined. For example, it uses then one of the LLMs. Doesn't matter which, if it's ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini. But it's important that you can use any AI or any LLM. This LLM has also access to WorkPath in order to check, okay, what is the organization about? What's the organization's strategy about? What is the organization's KPIs about? What is their priorities? What are their projects? So really have all information, all context that is needed. Then it analyzes everything, provides you an information within your workforce tool, for example, MS Teams, and said like, look, there's a new risk that comes up, that popped up. Please check that out. I already put it on the agenda for our next team meeting or our next OKR check-in. Yeah, and this is really how we want to build AI agents that then simplify the way of working in strategy execution. And if you believe this is interesting for you and you want to learn how to build these kind of agents on your own, there's also a new offering at WorkPath called the AI Bootcamp, where my colleague Fabian tells you how you can use these kind of workflow tools to build these kind of workflows for your organization. What is interesting or what is important to understand is that you can really connect all systems with each other, because the agent is then just operating between different systems, and you're not only, let's say, kind of limited to WordPress or maybe to ChatGPT, where you have to enter every information manually. All right, then let's also have a quick look on the evaluation phase. Here, I also share some prompts that you can use there. For example, preparation questions for your review or preparation questions for your retro is a typical use case. For sure, considering external factors that might have influenced goal achievement. As I said, during COVID, the stores have been closed, so probably this had an impact on e-commerce players. But there are way more, or there are a lot of other things that are not that obvious, probably. Then you could identify decision-making patterns in your assumptions or hypotheses. When you share them with the AI, you could ideate follow-ups, measures for the next planning phase when you have not achieved something or when something is blocked. And for sure, you could also summarize your learning. On the right-hand side, again, one example how a proper prompt with sufficient content could look like. With respect to the time, I will now close the webinar with respect to providing you with more information, with providing you input, and rather want to open the round for questions related to decision making and AI in strategy execution. I will wait a few more minutes while you maybe think about the questions. Yeah, a few more words. Yeah, today I want to just share some ideas how you can use AI. I guess what is most important is we today use ChatGPT. At the end, it doesn't matter which LLM you use because technology is not the let's say the competitive advantage anymore. Every week, one LLM gets more powerful than the other. One day it's Gemini, one day it's Claude, one day it's ChatGPT, then it's Copilot, whatever. So you can really use all of them. Just my recommendation is just try it out. Yeah. Also, what is a very good practical trick that I apply quite often is if you are not sure how to write a prompt, you can also ask the AI to write a prompt for you. Yeah. And you said just like, please write a prompt for the following situation. Then you describe what you want to do. And the AI is then creating the prompt for you. And then you can use that prompt for the actual usage of AI. And using prompt for a prompt is a super powerful tool because the AI really understands how to write a prompt that it can understand properly. Also, what is important, if you want to have more information about the AI Bootcamp or you want to discuss some of these topics using AI in strategy execution with me, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or via mail. My mail is alexander@wordpress.com. I'm also happy to help you out there. Or my colleague Lena also shared in the chat where you can find more information about the AI Bootcamp. And then just a few more announcements. One I have made already. We have the AI Bootcamp as a new format where you learn how to build AI agents. We also have 2 more formats that are focusing more on the topic of metric and data-driven way of working. We realized with our customers that properly working with KPIs in strategy execution is still an issue. We have now a free of charge self-assessment that just costs 10 minutes. Feel free to do that. We will then reach out to you and discuss with you in a free consultation what you can do to improve there. And also with my colleague Thomas, I already work with some organizations in workshop formats, how they can improve their KPI usage in strategy execution. We're there building KPI driver trees with the organizations in order to implement them also on our platform, because KPI driver trees at the end also showing the relations between different metrics, what is also a super powerful input for using AI in strategy execution. That said, I wish you a great rest of the week, a great rest of the day. Thanks for participating and hope to see you next time again.